Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Most of my clients, when they're starting out with me, are using double bands to work on their technique for the muscle up. So let's pretend this is the green and the purple band, because that is the most common band combination to start your muscle up journey. And what's so great about the muscle up is once you learn the technique, it's all about getting stronger over time. But the hardest part is also the technique, because it can take some time embodying the technique, so to speak. But once you get it, it's the same technique with double bands as a complete beginner to when you're doing weighted muscle ups. And I would also recommend using my gloves. They will make the muscle up much easier, especially the transition. So when you're working on your banded muscle ups, we want to learn the correct technique from the beginning. That means knowing the correct timing to pull and what to do during the transition. And also eliminate any leg kip whatsoever from the beginning. In that way, you don't have to unlearn it later in your muscle up journey. Because if you start kipping in the beginning of your muscle up journey, your body will get used to it and it's kind of hard to get rid of it. So better to learn the muscle up without kipping from the beginning. So the crucial part of the muscle up is the pull up timing. So I will demonstrate the pull up timing for you, then you can just copy it for your own workout. So it's better to time the pull up a little bit later in the swing than pulling up too early. When you're pulling up too early, you will get stuck under the bar. So I will demonstrate the correct pull up timing for you. And if you want all my muscle up tips emailed to you with videos to each tip, you can download my muscle up technique checklist. The link is in the description below. It's completely free and will help you get your muscle up faster and safer. So I was pulling up when I started to swing back, kind of parallel to the bars. So I'll do one more. So please practice that until it gets like second nature for you, because if you get the pull-up timing wrong, it really makes the muscle up so much harder. And if you get it right, it will almost feel like you're flying over the bar. And the next step, once you get the pull-up timing, you want to focus on pulling the bar towards your chest and touching the bar under your chest or lower for each repetition. So now when you got the pull-up timing, when you are about 90 degrees here, you want to pull the bar towards your chest and touch the bar under your chest or lower. That is the second thing to think about. Pulling as you start to swing back and then doing a straight bar row, touching the bar under your chest. And you can dedicate a complete session to just these two steps, because these two steps are the most important thing to get the full bodyweight muscle up and the clean bodyweight muscle up. Because I'm not using any leg momentum here at all. And the third step, or it's not really the third step, it's a step that should be included while you're doing step 1 and 2, and that is completely relaxing your core and legs. Because we don't want any leg momentum to get over the bar. The legs are completely relaxed, the core is completely relaxed. Okay, so I'll demonstrate that for you right now. So I'll jump into the resistance band. I'll grip the bar shoulder width apart, completely relaxing my core and legs, pulling as I'm starting to swing back, and then doing a straight bar row, touching the bar under the chest or lower. Putting it all together, it looks like this. And when all of this is easy for you, we move on to the next step. Now all you have to do as you're pulling the bar towards your chest is to simultaneously throw the chest over the bar. Once you do that, that is called the half muscle up, which is actually around 90 to 95% of the muscle up. The last part is just pushing up into the dip. So putting it all together, relaxed core and legs, pulling later in the swing, rowing the bar under your chest, and simultaneously throwing the chest over the bar, resting your stomach on the bar. That is the muscle up or the half muscle up. But once you get that, you can either choose to only do half muscle ups and go through each band combination, and as you get stronger, you move on from double bands to single bands and then down band by band until you can do your first bodyweight muscle up. So once you get this technique down, it's all about building the strength. And you build the strength by doing banded muscle ups, pairing it with weighted pull-ups and also doing weighted rows. So I just warmed up with the purple band for a few reps, moving on to the black band for a few reps. I always recommend warming up thoroughly before your work set, using the same technique throughout. Continuing the warm-up with the red band. Once you have 5 reps with the red band, you have 1 or 2 bodyweight muscle ups. So all I'm concentrating on right now when I'm doing this muscle up is the pull-up timing, pulling up later in the swing, and pulling the bar towards me as I'm throwing the chest over the bar. And that will make the muscle up very easy. And you don't want to use too much of a swing, because then you will get too far away from the bar in the backswing. And you don't want to use too small of a swing, because that will get you stuck under the bar. So somewhere in between. And when you're doing 2 muscle ups in a row, what you want to keep in mind is trying to make the reps look more or less the same by controlling the descent after the first rep, and then just using the same technique, which is pulling later in the swing, then rowing yourself over the bar as you're throwing yourself over the bar. And this will create a smooth transition, and controlling the descent will make your second muscle up look more or less like the first muscle up, which is what we want. So if you have good explosive strength, then what's lacking is to know the technique of the transition. If you don't know the technique, the muscle up is very hard. If you know the technique, it becomes like nothing. So the technique is simply rowing yourself over the bar. So all you have to think about is when you're pulling up and when you are about here, you want to row the bar towards your stomach or under the chest. And that is the transition. And to make it even easier, you simultaneously throw the chest over the bar. And that's it, my friends. Should we practice the muscle up and drop set with bands until we completely out? Or should we spare our strength to weighted pull-up? Thanks, Mike. I wouldn't recommend doing your muscle ups until failure. It's better to have like 2 reps in reserve. The strength for the muscle up is mainly built doing weighted explosive pull-ups. You also build the strength with resistance bands, but I consider the resistance bands mainly for technique practice. But you do want to save some strength for your weighted pull-ups and for your weighted rows. Hope that helps. Can you chin up muscle up? Does the gloves help with that to transition over? The gloves definitely help with that. Actually, I've never tried a chin up muscle up, but I don't want to try it right now either, because I'm not going full out on my muscle up. I'm rehabbing a small shoulder injury, nothing serious, but I don't want to risk anything. But definitely if you want to do chin up muscle ups, the gloves definitely help the transition. I'm learning the muscle up this year. Yes, you are. I really appreciate that slow motion, bro. Now I understand the transition better, and this is what he means. So when you're doing the transition for the muscle up, you can either throw your chest over the bar or pull the bar towards you, or do both at the same time. And that looks like this. So I was pulling the bar to my chest and throwing my chest over the bar. And that is a really good cue for making the transition easy. Greatly appreciated. I took screenshots just to remember to keep elbows in front and simultaneously pull the bar and dive over. Thank you so much for your comment. Let's go through this once again. So what helped him was to remember to keep the elbows in front and to simultaneously pull the bar and dive over. So we touched a little bit about this before, but let's go through it again. So when you're doing your muscle ups, you want to be pulling with your elbows facing forward. That's really important to create a good bar path around the bar. Think about keeping your elbows in front, and when you are about here, you're pulling the bar towards your chest and throwing your chest over the bar, or as he said, diving over. And that looks like this. And that will also create a very good bar path, which means you're pulling the bar close to your body, which will make the muscle up easier. Hope that helps. I've been seeing your videos. Thanks for the tips. I was already doing like 10 weighted pull-ups, but not even close to one single muscle up. Now I'm getting 4 and maybe 5 with a band, the second strongest in my set of bands. Looking forward to move to less resistance bands and eventually with no band at all. Yeah, I'm so glad you're making progress, and feel free to ask me any questions if you feel stuck along the way. Pulling later in the swing really made my muscle up easier. Thank you very much. All right, let's go through that once again. So I hope this angle is good. It might be a little bit dark, but I think you will see. So pulling later in the swing. We don't want to pull too early or too late. And this is what that looks like when pulling later in the swing. It will create a much better bar path and the transition will be much easier as well. You are the best coach. Thank you so much, that means a lot. And I'm really happy my tips help you. Great tips, Mike. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge and experience. Thank you so much, Devin. That's the purpose of this channel. I just want you to get your first bodyweight muscle up, mainly because it's the best feeling in the world. And if you like my muscle up tips and want to benefit me in a small way, you can always buy me a coffee. I leave a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page in the description below. And thank you so much for all your support.